Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. It's going to be the last one of the summer for us, so hopefully we'll see you in the September time after this. But let's just begin by having a few introductions. I'm Les Bono, I'm CEO of Stilo. I'm based in our UK office, and today I'm going to be presenting with Helen Sandini, our Conversion Services Manager, and Helen is based in our Ottawa office. So let me just give you a little bit of an intro to Stilo, the company. So Stilo International, we're a publicly listed company. We're traded on London Stock Exchange, and we've been in the business of SGML and XML and content conversion now for the best part of 30 years or more. We also developed AuthorBridge as a DITA web authoring tool for SMEs, and we operate 100% of our business in the DITA space, and we've done that for the last 10 years, ever since we decided to follow it as an XML standard. So we actually have three main product lines in the areas of conversion, and one is OmniMark, which some of you may know from SGML content processing days. So it's now basically a development tool for SGML and XML content conversion for developing content conversion scripts. There's Migrate, the cloud service which we'll be talking about today, which we introduced 9-10 years ago, basically sort of providing an alternative to traditional outsourced conversion and project methods. And we also have a new tool that we introduced this year called Optimizer, which helps analyze your XML DITA content and identify reuse opportunities. It helps deduplicate topics and automatically update conref libraries and DITA maps, and as such, it's really a very good adjunct to Migrate itself. As I said, we've been converting content now in DITA space using Migrate for 10 years or more, and we've dealt with customers across a range of industries. Typically, the early adopters of DITA were software companies because it came out of the IBM stable, but we deal with software companies, semiconductor manufacturers, educational publishers, sort of a whole raft of different company types. So we're here today to talk about content conversion. So are you ready to convert your content? So a few basic questions should be asked first. Basically, have you decided upon your content strategy? That should be in place. Your publishing processes should be in place. Your authors should have a good understanding of DITA. And you know what content you want to convert and when. And that's not such an easy question to answer necessarily, but it takes a bit of analysis and thought. And then you should also have a good appreciation of the consistency and quality of the content that you are looking to convert across to DITA. So some homework's required first before you're in a position to actually proceed and then convert your content. And then once you decide to convert your content, you have a few options available to you, really. There are three areas in which way you could go. So one is in-house, one is outsourcing to typically a conversion services partner, and the other is to go Migrate route, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So let's just consider these alternative approaches for a moment or two. So just in-house, typically what happens is that there's minimal budget available. You might have some, what you might call spare resources, somebody in-house who can write conversion scripts and has got some time on their hands to do that. You do your own prep and clean up and QA, and typically people will cut and paste, and that in itself can be really quite error-prone if you're doing it at scale. But typically you would do it ad hoc as time allows. And this is a fairly typical sort of route for a lot of people with low volumes to convert. So issue is that it doesn't really scale well, but it might actually see you through some initial conversions, and it certainly serves as a good learning exercise. We deal with a lot of customers who've actually maybe undertaken some script writing themselves and the like. They know and understand some of the difficulties and complexities of content conversion, and that suits us because we can talk about those particular problems, issues that they have when they come to talk to us about Migrate. So that's the in-house route. If you look at outsourced conversion projects, and typically they're project managed by a conversion services partner, And the way in which these proceed is as follows. So you agree a conversion spec with a partner, and the partner writes conversion scripts, and first of all you prototype these things, you test them, and then eventually you make them production ready. And this comes with a warning attached. I just very recently saw I was talking to a prospective customer who'd been working with a conversion services partner for the best part of 6 months, just trying to get a conversion spec actually completed. And so, no, I think it was actually 6 months late. It was longer than that they've been working to do this. The project was running 6 months late, and they hadn't actually converted one line of code in the process. And this can really be quite a tedious, onerous exercise for a lot of organizations. It takes a lot of time. And then once you're ready to convert, you would initiate a content freeze with your documentation. You'd batch your documents up for conversion. You or your partner undertakes the pre-conversion prep that might be necessary. You might be using offshore resources. Your partner undertakes post-conversion cleanup, and so do you. It must be understood that you can't just hand something off and then have nothing else to do with it. You'll get it back, and you have to QA these results, and you have to do cleanup as well. And then if you spot any problems or issues, you've got to notify your partner of the required changes, and you've got to repeat the exercise. So basically, this can be really quite frustrating as a process. There's plenty of scope for miscommunication. If you're talking with offshore partners, then there's sort of timing issues involved. You could spend a day or two just actually communicating and getting messages back, and this can be highly frustrating. And this is the sort of situation that we commonly saw with content conversion projects. And this is what we sought to address when we came out with the concept of Migrate, as I said, sort of 9-10 years ago. So with Migrate, the point is that you can get up and running quickly with your conversion project. So what do I mean by this? Well, we can actually avoid the need to document lengthy conversion specs. This is really, in many conversion projects, you would think this is the starting point. When we get invitations to tender, people will talk about, as a major part of the project, about the need to document sort of conversion specs and how long this might take. Well, I can say, actually, in 10 years of working with Migrate, with all of those customers, we've never written a single content conversion spec. We approach things in different ways, but we've never had to spend that time doing that. What we do is we build a working prototype using Migrate within hours, using your sample content and having discussions with you, and we can move quickly to a production-ready system. And as I say, never once actually sitting down and writing a conversion spec. So we can also reduce the requirement for manual pre-conversion prep because of the level of automation that we use in our conversion processes. So again, we can get you up and running really quite quickly, and then we can apply a few simple techniques for document preparation just to get you going quickly, and then we can tidy things up afterwards if needs be. So these are all ways in which we can get you up and running quickly. And then once you're up and running, we can produce really rapid results. So essentially, if you were working, say, in FrameMaker and you had some FrameMaker drawings and images or graphics with callouts, we can automatically generate SVGs from that. Now, that saves a heck of a lot of time. It might be that many of you aren't interested in converting FrameMaker or indeed FrameMaker drawings or images, but if you were, then this is really important because it's often the point that's overlooked and it can really hold up your project. So we can do this automatically. We can easily handle complex tables. We ensure basically high quality standards because of all the automation that we invested in building the Migrate platform over a period of 10 years. So using Migrate, we actually avoid the churn of going back and forth, maybe having to go, as I said before, offshore with conversion partners, and that all takes time, but you don't have to do that if you're using Migrate. I'll show you, well, we'll show you how in a minute or two. We can reduce the requirement for manual post-conversion cleanup, again, because our conversion processes are really very good, and we can pretty much convert anything as long as it's visible and we can recognize what we need to be doing. I think we can, we're using OnlyMark under the hood, and we can really get some very, very high quality results out of it. And, so, and often, in many cases, cutting the need out for any post-conversion cleanup altogether. So, nice thing is here, you can actually use Migrate. You can work at your own pace, according to your own priorities. So, if you want to slow down a bit, you can. But if you want to accelerate and get specific document groups or sets through, you can do. And this all operates on a pay-as-you-go basis. So the point here also is that actually all of these lessons apply to conversion projects of all sizes. So if you've just got a few documents to convert, that's fine. We can use Migrate. Sometimes we can sort of essentially provide what we call an over-the-wall service. We'd use Migrate on your behalf, and we'd give you the documents back. But actually, if you've got tens or hundreds of documents, we can set up Migrate for you, and you can push these things through very rapidly if needs be. So let me just give you a sense of sort of what the Migrate conversion platform is all about. Basically, we would provide you with a dedicated portal. This could actually be implemented on site if needs be. The vast majority of our customers take the cloud service. We pre-configure the portal with conversion rules, which based upon your own sample documents. And by the way, we can convert from all sorts of document formats. So do a lot of work in Frame, and that's what we'll be showing you today. You can convert Word, RoboHelp, InDesign, XML, SGML, HTML. We use various formats to convert to DITA. Author-it is another one. There are several, and if you want to ask about specific formats, please do at the end. But we would take your sample documents, we'd pre-configure conversion rules for you. We can essentially specify whether you want to do the 1.2 or 1.3, if you want specializations or not. We can incorporate specializations quite easily. And then we can handle different document groups. We can put different importers in place of different document groups if needs be, although we find, generally speaking, that one or two sort of document importers is quite sufficient for the largest of projects. And then we can basically introduce we can upload documents, either a single document at a time, or we can zip things together, and we can do bulk uploads so that we can basically convert at volume if needs be against tight schedules. So we upload a document to the portal, it gets analyzed. We look at all sorts of characteristics in the document. So we're looking for text and tables and images, equations. We're looking for conditional text with patterns and context. And we make annotations in what we call intermediate XML format. And we annotate the document characteristics, and then we map them to the target DITA. In so doing, we produce an analysis report. So we provide information messages and warning messages and error messages. If we see anything that's untoward in this document that's been analyzed, then it might just highlight some things you should be looking out for. And then we have this concept of conversion credits, where one conversion credit processes 1,000 characters. So we analyze your document, we count number of characters, and we tell you how much it would cost based upon the conversion credits that you would have preloaded on your system and paid for on your system. So you buy your conversion credits and just pay as you use, pay as you go, really. So once you're happy that you're going to be accepting the charges for the conversion, you convert. Easily done. Just press a button and you convert in real time. It's all schema-generated DITA, so you're going to get basically valid DITA every time. And as I said before, you can do this on demand 24/7. You can have many people coming into this dedicated portal. You can have as many authors as you like coming in, converting their own documents. That's not a problem at all. At the same time, we'll provide error reporting for any conversion jobs that may be having some issues. Provide you with a management dashboard so you can essentially project manage your project. And then we would, if you've got any problems or any issues, if you don't like the data you're getting, you want to refine it, you want to tweak the rules, you can do so using the Migrate Rules Editor. The nice thing about this is that the authoring teams can guide these exceptions. The authoring teams can actually tweak these rules. You don't need to be a developer to do this. And Helen will show you this in a few minutes or two. I think it's worth mentioning that Helen actually used to be our documentation manager before she took on the role of being conversion services manager. She's not a developer herself. So we can easily configure new rules. We can reconvert as many times as necessary. It doesn't cost you any more once the document's been uploaded and analyzed. And as I say, you can reconvert until you've got the quality of content that you're looking for. You can clone and modify rule sets. So if you had sort of particular variations within groups of documents, if you wanted to create new rule sets, and quickly you can do that too. And all the while, we're sitting in the background offering support. So if needs be, we can sort of dip into the portal, and we can, if you have problems with any particular documents, we can do some investigation and try to find out what's going wrong and what needs to be done to fix it. So this is the way we work, and documents get converted, and then you would download the content. So as I said earlier, you get basically sort of valid DITA every time, so it's of a high quality. And you can have very much tailored output. So if you want DITA topics or specialized topics, we can do that. DITA maps or book maps. As mentioned earlier, FrameMaker drawings to SVG and equations to MathML. So we typically download that, and then the teams would just upload to their CCMSs. The majority of people choose not to do that automatically, although we could actually integrate this with your CCMS if you wanted to, and then just rather than download, we could just upload directly to it. But in practice, people normally download and essentially sort of act as, I guess, the gatekeepers to their CCMS. So that's a very brief introduction. What I'd like to do now is hand over to Helen to talk you through a few tips. So this is basically how we would get you prepped in the first place to do this prototyping. And now what we want to do is talk about what you might want to do with your content, or how you might just sort of very quickly want to get going with your content. So Helen should just be transferring now, and hopefully you'll be able to hear her in a few seconds. I notice you're on mute, Helen.
Now I'm not on mute.
Now we can hear you.
Yes. So, did you want me to go straight into the demo?
No, I think to go into to talk about about preparing content.
Okay. Because I don't have the slides here.
Sorry, you have them there?
I will get them.
I can. Well, if you, I can share. We can share if you like, or we can go straight.
Well, no, because I should get them and start going through. Let me see. Okay. So I'll get these opened. Sorry. Just wants to open with Google Slides.
So what Helen's going to be talking about in a few minutes is basically sort of just to provide a few tips and tricks really as to best ways of prepping your content if needs be. There's often the case that we don't have to do too much to prep the content because, well, it depends upon sort of the status of the quality of your content. But in many cases, we don't have to do a lot of pre-prepping of it, but in some cases you do. And Helen was going to just sort of talk you through about some things you can look out for which can help fast-track your conversion project. So I don't know, Helen, if you have your slides.
They're coming. They're coming.
Okay. That's the joys of PowerPoint, and just waiting for things to open up, presumably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We're here. Okay.
Okay, things are happening.
Yes, this is going to be better now. Okay.
Okay, very good.
Okay, there we go. That's better. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, so what do we need to do to get good usable DITA quickly? You don't need to do very much to get DITA. What you need for DITA is just topics. But in order to get something that you can actually use, there may be some other things that are required. So I just want to briefly talk about some of the things that you would want to do, and maybe some of the things that you actually don't need to do, even though you might think you might need to. So are we going to clean up our content before or after we convert? There's a few things to think about. If there was absolutely no cleanup required, you would essentially already be authoring in DITA. Most of us aren't. You know, we've dealt with some of our customers who have taken the approach that if they author in a manner that is close to DITA structures, the conversion is going to go cleaner. And it does. It goes more quickly. But there's still going to be issues, and we'll actually see an example of that in the demo. Pre-conversion versus post-conversion. If you have a group of documents that you aren't using currently, if they just need to get them into the CCMS quickly because maybe your old system is going away quickly, then maybe it's okay to leave most of the cleanup until after the conversion. Let's just get it into DITA, and we can work with it after. And then the old system can go away, and we can forget about it. On the other hand, if these are living documents that you're working with all the time, if you're actively modifying and editing the documents, it might be more efficient to do the pre-conversion work as you are working with the documents, so that when it's time to publish, they're ready to convert. There'll be very little else to do. You can just convert and be ready to go. And if you are using Migrate, a nice automated system, it's very quick, so you don't have to keep your documents out of production very long. So that's the advantage of doing it that way. So what do you absolutely need to do ahead of time? Well, we've got to have topics. So that's usually pretty easy. If you've got headings in your content, you can just break those out into topics at the heading level, and you can just decide how deeply you go to create topics, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and so on. And that's the only decision you really need to make. That's easy. Topic types. So obviously DITA has its information typing. So we have different types of topics. We need to be able to distinguish them. So you don't always, in fact. Some organizations, it's not really important, the topic type, depending on the type of content you have. So you may choose to have everything be a concept. You may choose to have everything be just a generic topic. Or maybe your documentation is, in fact, all reference material. So you just make everything references. So if that's the case, then there's really nothing to do. But for most people, it's important to get the topic type right when you convert. If you get the wrong topic type coming out, it may be valid DITA, but it isn't the correct DITA. Cleaning that up after the fact is not fun. So we'll try to get it right in the first place. So these are some of the ways that we suggest. This is really the most bang for your buck in terms of doing any kind of pre-conversion prep. These are the things that I sort of recommend as to where you'll get the most value for the amount of time you spend on it. Indicating the topic types. So there's a few ways to do it. So in some cases, your authoring conventions are enough. So maybe all your tasks start with gerunds, or how to. Maybe all your concepts begin with about. References, especially if it's a CLI reference, they'll likely have titles that are command names, and so they begin with lowercase letters. So those are easy to pick out. So you don't need to do anything else there. Another way of doing it is in paragraph styles. There's actually quite common that people will have a separate paragraph style to indicate a task. So it might be procedure heading for tasks instead of heading 1, and so on. So we can definitely use that. Some people like to go in and put a prefix before the title of their topic, so that we can look at that and say if it's got a T in front of it, we make a task. If it's got an R in front of it, we make a reference, and so on. So we can just match on these and then strip them out of the content when we convert. And we can actually leave them prefixed to the file name if we want. A lot of people like those prefixes on the file name. One of the best ways I find, especially with FrameMaker, put in a marker, put in a custom marker to indicate the topic type, just in the paragraph that's the title of the topic. With RoboHelp, one of the things we found that works is using a template with the topic type. So you'd have a separate template for a task, let's say, separate template for a reference, that kind of thing. Those are easy to match on as well. Or we can allow the conversion to determine the topic type based on the content of the topic. So if there are steps, Migrate's going to know that this is a task, for example. Now, my favorite thing to do is actually a combination of these. So Migrate is really good at picking out tasks. We generally don't have to worry about that. It can occasionally be difficult to distinguish between a concept and a reference based on the content, because the content models are fairly similar. So what I often suggest to people is put a marker on things that you want to be references. And we can pick that out and make those into references, and Migrate will tell the difference between a concept and a task for the others. So that's really pretty easy pre-conversion prep. Shouldn't take too long, and this is going to get you accurate topic type. The other thing that is important in getting your content ready to convert is to make sure that your topics actually do match the data model. Tasks being the trickiest. You can write task type content in ways that don't exactly match the DITA task model. It's very commonplace to see a task that will have steps of how to do something and how to undo it in the same topic, or two different ways of doing the same thing in the same topic. That's just not going to fly in DITA. DITA has one set of steps. There's no sections. There are things that can come before and after the steps, but they have to be in a very specific order. So these are things that is probably best to clean up beforehand, even if it's just a question of, okay, I've got two sets of steps. I need to stick in another title between them so that I can get another topic there. As for the inline elements, the content that's going to be things like command names or variable names or UI controls, that sort of thing. If you localize in particular, it's important that those be distinguished properly. Some of these things shouldn't be translated. Some of the things will be published in a different manner depending on the language in which they're being published. So it's important to get these right for some people. Now, for other people, it may not be as important, because if it looks bold, then that's all you need, right? But if it is important to you, then there are things that we can think about to make sure that those get converted correctly. So you may already be using some kind of styling for these things, or typographical conventions. Most people do, so your UI controls will be bold, and maybe your citations will be italicized. So this can help us, but it can be a bit ambiguous because more than one thing can be bold, for example. So we might need to use other clues as well. Now, there will be clues in the context. We can use those to a very great extent. But some things are harder to distinguish, especially in the, for example, things like variable names, file paths, and so on. We may want to be careful about distinguishing these. So what can we do? Well, we can use style names. And this is very workable if you're still in the process of authoring. By all means, invent a character style and use it for all of these things. Another way, though, that we found that has worked for folks whose documentation is already done, they're just going through it, just go through quickly and color code these things, and then just provide us with the legend for the colors, and off you go. We'll convert those to what they're supposed to be. Stuff you probably don't need to worry about, tables. Tables we handle very nicely, so you'll see that a table will go in. It might have column spanning and row spanning. It will have a title. It will have heading rows. It's going to come out like that automatically. Of course, the alternative is that sometimes tables are used for layout, and we don't actually want a table. That's also okay. We can just put some rules in place to strip out those tables and mark up the content inside correctly. Links you don't have to worry about. If the links, the internal links work in the document, they will work in the DITA. Variables. Again, if you've got variables in your FrameMaker and you want those to become keys or conrefs, we can extract those and do that as well. Conditional text, again, we can map those to the appropriate DITA profiling attributes. Other things to think about. Graphics is a big one. Graphics is a huge problem for people as they are changing over. And one of the things that that you'll find is that if you are authoring in say, FrameMaker, and you have done a lot of these graphics with callouts on top, the callouts are done in a FrameMaker drawing. You can't just take that FrameMaker drawing and stick it in something else. It only is going to work in FrameMaker. So you have to do something else. And in our case, what we do is we take that FrameMaker drawing and convert it to an SVG. Of course, you have to make sure that the underlying graphics are in a supported format as well. And you've got to figure out where you're going to put these graphics and how you're going to identify them. Back to the text again, paragraph breaks are a thing that you'll notice sometimes. People have put a paragraph break in. Oh, sorry, I should have flipped through here. You put a paragraph break in where you just wanted a line end, so you ended up with a second paragraph. Or the reverse, soft line breaks have been used instead of paragraphs, so you've got run together text. So these are things to look at before you convert, because that's easier to fix beforehand than after. The odd time you might end up with text in the wrong order. Text boxes can show up in a wrong place. Typically, that's a minor issue. Occasionally, we find it's a significant problem. InDesign documents might have to have things re-anchored or re-threaded, because the whole point of InDesign is you can shift things around on the page. So they may not be where you think they are. And, you know, last couple of things before you convert. If you're converting an XML format to another XML format, for example, you'll need to have a valid doc type. FrameMaker files, we save them out as .mif. Word needs to be saved out as docx. And now the fun part. I get to show you the demo. This is the part that I like the best. And, okay, I'll have to escape from that. That's not it. This is it. Okay. So what you see here is the screen you would see when you log in to a Migrate portal, and it has the documents that you've uploaded to the portal. I've got the same one uploaded twice, only because I did this preparing for the demo. You wouldn't normally do that in real life, because once you have it uploaded, you can make as many changes as you like to the rules, convert, download as often as you like. Same document, pay for it once. So I'll quickly show you the workflow. We'll take a quick peek at the document we're converting, the output that we get, and then I'll show you some of the different things we can do to change and modify the output, which will really show what we mean when we say we don't need to prepare a full-on conversion spec ahead of time. So first thing we do is upload the document. And I'm going to upload this zip file, but what's in the zip file is just my book, the file that's the book, saved as .mif, my chapter saved as .mif. I've got my images in there too, and I've got a little text file, book file name.txt, that just tells me the name of the book file. That's how Migrate puts everything in order. It just uses that as a TOC. So I'll select that. I'll tell it it's FrameMaker. Oops, FrameMaker book. So it's uploaded. I go back over here. We'll see that it's analyzing. So what it's doing now is it's taking that FrameMaker, it's converting it to our intermediate XML. It's extracting any drawings, making them into SVGs. If there were any equations, they would be becoming MathML. And it's also counting the number of text characters. That's going to calculate how many credits it takes. So we finished analyzing. It's going to cost us 7 credits for this one. Let's look at what the analysis shows. So 7,066 characters. That's 7 credits. We've got some FrameMaker graphics we've converted. So we've got 12 images. We've also got tables and things. We don't care about those. Those don't have any impact on the credits. We have messages. So our messages here are about the SVGs that we've created. And it's just warning us that there are certain things where FrameMaker smooths things that aren't supported in the same way in SVG. So it's just a warning about that, but I think that when you see the SVGs, you'll find that, in fact, the SVGs look nicer than the originals. But we'll get there. So we can just accept the charges here. We're OK with those. And then what I'll do is I will give this a rule set. And I'm going to go back here because I forgot what I called my rule set. OK, I called it July Demo. And I'm going to choose a target. And in this case, I'm just going to go with DITA 1.3 with a map. And I'm going to hit Convert. That will take approximately a minute to convert. So the document that I'm converting is, what I did was I just took, honestly, one of the samples that came with FrameMaker, and I modified it only very slightly, just to show some of the things that we're interested in showing. And then I put a second chapter in that just has a few of these images with call-outs so that we can show how these call-outs come out in the SVG and how you could just then still use these graphics. These are all JPEGs underneath, and the call-outs are just drawn with the FrameMaker drawing tool. So that's what we're converting. Come on, FrameMaker. Thank you. OK, well, we'll believe it. So that has now converted. So we can now download it, and we'll have a look at it. So from that FrameMaker book that had 2 chapters in it, you can see that I've got a file out for, I did a file out for each DITA topic. I've got a map. I've got a DITA val file because we had some conditional text in there as well. And I've got a whole bunch of SVGs that have come from those drawings. So I'm going to open this up in XML for no particular reason other than that's the one that I have. This one goes up. So this is my map. The document, you may have noticed, is about your personal spaceship. So this is my first topic. It's a concept. I've got a short description. I've got internal links. Now these will all work. I've emptied the link text so that the DITA Open Toolkit can supply that text. I've got a definition list here. And history of flight, again, a concept. I've got tables, as you can see. We've got a table with a title. We've got a heading row. One of the things I'll quickly point out about this is that in this conversion, we went ahead and we just used the default, which is that mixed content is allowed in tables. So we've got, within our entry, we've got C data, and then here, because we have 2 paragraphs, we've got some C data and paragraph. And that is absolutely perfectly fine data. Not everybody likes it. So again, we'll talk about how we go about changing that should our requirements be different. So overview is a concept. That's sensible. Requirements is a reference, which also seems sensible. So we made the rule based on if the title of the topic contains the word requirements, we're going to make it into a reference. Launch and landing site. We made that a reference too, and we did it by putting a marker in the FrameMaker saying this is reference. You'll notice also the footnotes have come out automatically. So we've got some tasks in here. And they've come out nicely, as you can see. These are some of the SVGs, by the way. We've got steps, and we've got UI controls, and we've got window titles. Those are all coming out because there is styling in there to help us do it. We've got a task result. You'll notice also here we've got prerequisites. So this is another thing that we might consider changing. People might look at this and say, you know, this is not really prerequisites. We want the stuff before steps to be context. So although this is perfectly good and valid DITA, maybe it's not the DITA we want. Also, I often get asked, what if it's not valid DITA? And the fact is, what you're going to get out is going to be valid DITA. But if we try to tell Migrate to do something that is not allowed, this is what Migrate will do. It will give us required cleanup. So now I have some choices. I can look at this and I can say, you know what, this is required cleanup because what we've got, we tried to put the info element in the wrong spot. So we've got step result, and then we've put info after that, and then we put substeps after that, and that's not allowed. So it's wrapped in required cleanup, so now that's valid, and the rest of the conversion can continue. So maybe I want to leave it like that and have my authors rewrite this. Maybe, on the other hand, I want to change my rules so that what I get out of this is now going to be a step result, and it's going to have some list items in it. And so it will still be valid. So I have those choices that I can make. And then we'll just quickly look at our a couple of things here actually. So thermal protection, that is coming out as a concept. Maybe I think I really would prefer that to be a reference. So we'll look at what we can do to easily make that into a reference topic as well. And here are some of these SVGs that are coming out with the callouts. Again, we've got a table in here. This is a simple table that's within this figure. So this figure now becomes a reusable thing with its callouts described here. And you can see that these numbers, they do look really perfectly smooth in spite of those warning messages, nicer than they did in the original, I think. So these can now be reused in any output format instead of losing all the work that you've done there. So that's what I've got. So for the most part, I'm happy with my content, but there are these things that I want to look at modifying. So I will go back over here, and I will open up my rules editor. And this should take just a few seconds to open up. Here we are. Okay, so this is the rules editor, and it will show you a representation of the input document. This is actually based on our intermediate XML because it's the elements of our intermediate XML that get annotated that help us get the appropriate DITA. Down here is the rules and where we can edit them, modify them, add more. Over here, we've got a list of the rules and a spot where we can see the properties of any particular piece of text that we select. So the first thing that we have on our list of things to do is to do something about that required cleanup. And if I decide that I really want to do something about that, if I don't want required cleanup, I'm going to come here and find my substeps. So what I want to do now is to say, okay, if I find step info, I've been just making it info because that's what it seems to want to be, and substeps, the same thing. I've just made them substeps, but they're in the wrong place. So I can make a rule that says if they come inside a step result, then this now is going to be a numbered list item, and this is not going to be info. So I've actually put those rules in here, and I've just turned them off. So I'm going to put them on, just for the sake of saving some time. Turn off the ones I have. So here I've just said, if it's step info and the context result isn't on, and I put the result context on the result here. Put this on. So my result is setting a context. It's going to be inside result. And my substep, if it's inside a result, it's going to be an ordered list. So I'll just save those rules. I wanted also to make sure that the first part of my task was coming out as context and not prerequisites. So I'm going to just select my first step here. Okay, so what I can do here, I know that I have this paragraph and its style is step 1 start, so I just make a new rule here, and I can say before my first step, I want context, preceded by context. Before I save all those, I wanted also to make to make a reference. So we had a reference in here, and you can see we did it by looking for a marker that had been put in the FrameMaker. And that shows up as a property called reference. Now, I did not put that property on this topic, but I can do it now. So I've selected this headline, and I can right-click here, and I can add that property. So now when I run my rules again, we're going to find that property, and this will become a reference. So I'm going to save that. That should take a second to save. Okay, and the last thing that I wanted to change was I wanted to eliminate that mixed content thing. So I don't do that in a rule, actually. I have a target that is specific to that. So I'll just change my target here. So it's slightly different configuration. And then I hit convert. And that's going to take approximately a minute again. And we will see all of those changes. So that required cleanup will be gone away, and any other situations in any of my other content where those things were in that order will now not be in required cleanup. They'll all be nice and valid. We'll have context before the steps in all our tasks instead of prerequisites. We will have that one topic that's now going to be a reference that wasn't before. Now that will only happen in that one document, that one version of it where I've added it. If I were to upload that document again, I would have to add that property again. But we will have also no mixed content in our tables or our list items. It will all be block content. So this should not take long to finish converting. While it does, if I wanted to, oh, there we are. I won't even bother. I will just download that. Assuming I didn't make any mistakes in my rules, we should get everything that we want now. So, look at history of flight. In my table, you can see now I have block content in all of these table entries. I guess I didn't get my required cleanup correct, so I'll have to go back and do that. But you'll notice I do have context here. I no longer have the prerequisites. My thermal protection. And you can see that this is a reference. So you can see how quick it is to make these kinds of adjustments that affect your entire content. You don't have to know that whether or not you want, for example, mixed content in your table cells at a time, because it can be adjusted as you need it. And the nice thing is that even though I didn't get my required cleanup right this time, I can go back to my rules editor and fix it and convert again. I can do that as much as I need to. until I get the content that I'm happy with on the output. So I guess that really is kind of showing why it is that we say we don't need a full-on conversion spec before we begin. We can adjust these things on the fly and convert as often as we need to. But I think I'm just about out of time.
Yes, thanks, Helen. We have a few minutes left. I'll go through a couple of slides in a moment or two, but I just wondered if there might be any questions before we move away from the demo screen, if people want to ask now. So I'll just give you a minute to think about it. I guess some questions got coming in. Can we convert from InDesign files? I think that, yes, we can. InDesign, Frame, Word, many different formats. Another question, does it cost extra to convert documents more than once? I think we showed you earlier that actually you can reconvert as many times as you like. Once you've uploaded it to the portal, you can reconvert as many times as you like, and it doesn't cost you extra. Another question was, can you convert to scale or high volume using Migrate? And the answer to that is yes. I think we said before, you can upload individual documents, or you can zip them up as well and push them through. And what we haven't had time to show you today is that you can use sort of baskets as well to manage your work, so everybody on a project can have their individual dashboards, if you like, with their own work included. So that all helps when you're converting at scale. So I think at that point we'd better move on. Actually, there's just 2 minutes left. If I can just get control. Thank you. I'm now the presenter. Let me share my screen. And hopefully that will work all right. So I'll just escape from that for the moment. Well, I'll try to at least. It's not going to let me. No, it's not going to let me, unfortunately. Let me try once more. It's very annoying. Okay, come back to life again. So let me just try to go to the slide I wanted to share with you and cover off another couple of points here. The Migrate engagement process, if you're interested in exploring this further, basically you provide us with a sample document, maybe 20 or 30 pages. You can upload that to us on our website, and we'll analyze and convert the content for you. Typically, it takes us about an hour or so to put some initial rules together, which is great, really, because you can very quickly see your own content being converted to DITA. We'll review the results with you, and then we'll give you the results back as well for your own testing and evaluation purposes. So you can just take a look at your own content. It helps you better understand it. And then basically, if you want to take it further, we would then agree configuration and tailoring requirements. So we go back and forth a little bit. We have typically a sort of a configuration WebEx meeting. But again, we don't have to get involved in writing complex conversion scripts or specifications, I should say. We can avoid that, and it saves a heck of a lot of time in terms of getting you up and running. And so if you did want to go ahead, there's two methods, really. If you want to operate your own Migrate portal and be in complete control of that process, we typically take a couple of days of just setting things up for you according to your own specification. Typically, the thing that you need to learn about is the rules editor, and we would provide an initial training session, maybe about an hour or so, and we can supplement that as well with additional training if needs be, but that's generally sufficient to get you up and running using the rules editor, and then you can tweak the rules accordingly. And if you do get into difficulties of any sort, then we can help out by providing additional support behind the scenes. Alternatively, if you don't want to use your own portal, you can essentially sort of provide, we would provide what we would call an over-the-wall service. We would operate the portal on your behalf, and we would do I suppose, more traditional outsourced service we can provide, which is fine, but we actually can, get up and running again quickly because we're using Migrate. So that's the way the engagement process works. As I mentioned before, we, just direct you to our website, and you'll see there some more details and be able to upload a sample there if you wish to. So from now on in, basically, you'll be able to see us at a couple of upcoming conferences. We're going to be at LavaCon in October, and Helen actually will be presenting there, talking about content reuse. And it's worth bearing in mind as well that we showed you Migrate converting content to DITA. We can also subsequently run that through our new product optimizer, so we can identify reuse opportunities, and we can dedupe content, and we can update your conref libraries and maps as well. We'll also be at DITA Europe in Brussels in November time, so hopefully we'll be able to see you there. So I'd just like to thank you for your attendance today. We've run out of time, so if you have any more questions, please supply them. We'll try to get back to you later. In the meantime, thanks very much for attending today's conference and webinar, and please provide us feedback if you have time immediately following. We always appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. So thank you very much for your time today, and thank you, Helen, for your demo and presentation. Thanks very much, everyone.